From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show. Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome in to The Road to Cookeville. I'm Joe Williams, along with my special guest, Maurice Patton. And Maurice, we're down now to where it really starts to get tight. Down to the semifinals, 2 weeks, we'll have new state champions. Well, potentially new state champions.
Yeah, we will have some new state champions for sure, and some other teams are hoping that we'll have some new state champions as well.
And some are hoping we get repeats.
Yeah.
Let's get straight to the brackets for this week. We don't have to show them to you because they're really just two games in every division, in every class, I should say, in Division 1. Division 2 we'll talk about because they get the week off, and we'll cover that here in a little bit. But first, let's start in Class A, where Coalfield at 11-1 has to travel to Gordonsville. Coalfield got 212 yards and 3 touchdowns from their senior running back, Addison Bible. They beat Greenback last week 34-31. Gordonsville, a little bit of an easier time, though. They busted the Cinderella glass slipper that Eagleville was wearing as they downed the Eagles 30, what was it? It was 28-13 was the final score there. Needed a couple of touchdowns, though, in the fourth quarter to pull away. Yeah,
Eagleville coming off their win over previously undefeated Moore County in the second round, rolled into Gordonsville. Gordonsville had beaten one of their arch nemesis in South Pittsburgh in that second round. They lost to South Pittsburgh in the semifinals in 1A last year, and so Gordonsville took some confidence out of that one. Like you said, a tight ball game for about a half, and then they kind of pulled away late to set up this semifinal game with Coalfield coming in from Morgan County. You know where that is?
Morgan County is way up in the east state, I believe.
It's about a 2-hour drive or
way
so
up
for Coalfield just to get to Gordonsville. Then they got to worry about that combination of Kalen Kaysen at running back and Peyton Watson at quarterback. It could be a long night for the Yellow Jackets.
Was for the Eagles. Kaysen had 133 yards. Watson had 136 on the ground for Gordonsville. You don't get much more even than that.
Well, and you've got a couple of guys up front. Tyler Cohen at offensive tackle for Gordonsville is a Mr. Football Lineman of the Year finalist. And I've just lost the other one's name. His first name is Cody Payne. Cody Payne. So,
it's appropriate for a lineman.
Exactly. But I had the chance to see Gordonsville earlier in the year against Trousdale County and was really impressed, particularly with their running game, like I said, with Kalen Kaysen and Peyton Watson. So I'm really looking for them to take the next step and get into the state finals next week.
If they do, they'll face either Nashville Christian or Huntington. Both of these teams are 11-2. Nashville Christian, Coach Jeff Brothers and his squad will have to get on the road and go to Huntington. That's about a 2.5-hour trip, not that far from Martin, Tennessee. Huntington, the number 3 seed, they got 132 yards in the first half from their quarterback, Jacob Warburton, last week. They used some fumbles in the second half to eliminate West Carroll 37-6. Sounds pretty easy. Nashville Christian upset number 1 seed Collinwood 42-35. Now, Maurice, this comes the week after they upset number 2 seed Adamsville 24-0. All of these on the road. The Eagles got 240 yards from Philip Booker on just 22 carries.
Yeah, I've really liked the job that Jeff Brothers has done at Nashville Christian since he went over there from Pope John Paul back in the spring of 2010. Third year over there, third playoff visit. Nashville Christian wasn't exactly a school that you associated with postseason success in football, but he is really starting to kind of put his stamp on things. former Brentwood Academy quarterback, former Vanderbilt safety, so he's used to being successful where he goes. And with a guy like Philip Booker at running back, that really tends to help the situation a little bit.
The funny part, my first reaction here was, well, since Eagleville's gone, I guess Nashville Christian takes on the title of the Cinderella team. But the more I've done a little more reading, I'm not sure that's a fair statement. I think they are just as strong as any of these other three that are there.
I think you look at the number 3 seed and the fact that they had to play the first week, and maybe that kind of gives you that Cinderella, that underdog type theme for them. But don't be fooled. They came out of a really tough district in District 10. Had to beat a couple of district rivals early on in McEwen and Clarksville Academy, and they are really playing with a lot of confidence right now, and I don't think they're going to step away from anybody at this point. The thing that they've got to be careful of this week is Huntington's quarterback, Jacob Warbritton, who you spoke about a second ago, has 2,720 rushing yards this year. So quiet as it's kept out in West Tennessee, he's got a shot. Should they win this ball game and get to the finals next week, he's got a shot at breaking the single season rushing record of 3,068 that was just set last year.
That's a good point. So, and I believe he's a finalist in the Mr. Football.
I believe that's
For
correct.
Class A backs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Class AA, where this ought to be a whale of a battle, and if you're out near Lebanon, this will be fun to see. Boyd Buchanan, 12-1 at Friendship Christian. 11-1. Chattanooga, Boyd Buchanan, they allowed Knoxville Grace to convert 5 fourth-down attempts in the first half. First half, a close ball game. The second half, Knoxville Grace tried it 4 times, got stuffed. All 4 times, Buchanan goes on to win 35-13. That ends the Rams' emotional run. On the other side, Friendship had little trouble with Marion County. A.J. Long, 12 of 18 in the air, 283 yards, 5 touchdowns in a 35-12 victory.
You know, I was really a little surprised that Friendship didn't have any more problems with Marion County than they did, but I think it speaks to how well they're playing right now. As you said, Boyd Buchanan, Grace converting 5 fourth-down attempts in the first half. You know, you got to go in at halftime a little bit concerned, and obviously you got to feel like you got to shore some things up, and apparently they did. But credit Grace. I mean, going for it on 4th down 9 times. Exactly. I mean, you know, 5 of 9 on 4th down conversions. You don't see that very often at the high school level. Unfortunately, as we've talked about, sometimes it's not how many, but when.
Well, exactly. Very seldom do you see a team convert 5 of 9 4th downs and come out on the losing end of the score, especially by 22 points.
Exactly. So, you know, they must have gone in at halftime, Boyd Buchanan did, and I'm sure the coach expressed himself on a few things.
Rather well. Of course, Boyd Buchanan traveling again. They'll have to come, I believe, they got to come to Friendship Christian up in Lebanon, and that is not, even with 840, that's not the easiest of rides.
It's not the easiest of rides once you get off I-40. Like I said, I went out there earlier this year, and you kind of drive out 109, and then you turn off into the middle of nowhere, it feels like, and at least it was light when I went out there. It's going to be a little darker when these guys from Chattanooga go back in there, so hopefully they'll find the stadium.
Hopefully?
Yeah.
Well, if it's, you know, surely the lights will light things up.
You got to get
Friday
to it,
night
though.
lights.
Exactly.
You can see them, right? Tell you what we got to see. First, I want to say a special thanks to the folks at the Batter's Box. They're over at 43 Hermitage Avenue. As Mo and I were talking a couple of minutes ago, let's see. They've got food, they got TVs, they got sports. Good beverages.
That pretty well
covers it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the Batter's Box on Hermitage Avenue. We're going to come back and take a look at Class 3, 4, 5, and 6A. All that coming up here on the road to Cookeville.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to the second segment of the Road to Cookeville this week. I'm Joe Williams, along with my special guest, Maurice Patton. And Maurice, we got to say a special thanks to the folks at Highland Rim Speedway up in Ridgetop, Tennessee, for being a part of our broadcast today. The Rim finished the season, but they'll be back the first next year. Just go to highlandrim.com, find out what good things are going on there. We go to Class AAA as we look at the road to Cookeville. Everybody trying to be in Cookeville 2 weeks from this Friday. And in Class AAA, the East State version, Christian Academy of Knoxville 12-1, having traveled to Elizabethton. Take your pick on how you want to pronounce that. They are also 11-2. They're also the number 1 seed in their bracket, but they struggled to get past Sullivan North last week, 41-38. CAK, as it's better known, as a number 3 seed, knocked out Alcoa 38-36 in a 1-2 battle. The defending state champs stopped a tornado attempt at a tying 2-point conversion with a minute and a half left.
And those two have gone at it quite a bit. They're both in the same district, District 4 AA over there, so they play each other in the regular season. They're clearly two of the best programs in the East Tennessee area, and they've met last year under very similar circumstances. Alcoa won the regular season game. CAK wins the rematch, advances to the state championship, and wins that over Milan. So CAK, one of those teams that we were talking about earlier, looking to repeat. And with Mr. Football candidate, defending Mr. Football, Charlie High, who's thrown for about 4,800 yards and a boatload of touchdowns.
Yeah.
You got to feel pretty good about their chances, certainly to get past Elizabethton and get into Cookeville.
Speaking of Charlie High, 374 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns last week for the Winners. Sounds like he might have had an off night. You throw for 4,800 yards. Gracious, that's just gaudy.
In high school.
That's gaudy.
Sounds like Texas numbers or something.
Yeah, it does. The other matchup is going to be a good one, and it'll be here in Nashville as Milan, very storied program out of the West State at 11-2, travels to Christ Presbyterian Academy, CPA, where Ingle Martin has his squad undefeated, 13-0, and probably the favorite, at least in this ball game. Milan advanced to the Final Four. This is the 6th straight time they've made it into the semifinals of the states. They beat Hickman County 35-6. Arco Coleman, 122 yards on 21 carries. For CPA, they handed Cheatham County their first and last loss of the season. Battle of Unbeatens, Albert Mitchell, 14-23, 219 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns. On the ground, Chase Smith, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Maurice, CPA's victory there when they scored 37 points. That's the least amount of points that they have scored in the playoffs.
You know, they've really been an explosive offense all year, and even more so here in the playoffs, as you said. As you look back, they scored 62 in their opener against Good Pasture and 37 each of the last 2 weeks. So they've really been getting it done offensively. They really balanced, as you said, with Mitchell and Chase Smith going into that Milan game. They lost at Milan in the semifinals last year, 16-14. Mitchell suffered a broken foot in that loss. So they feel like if they can go in there and be healthy and stay healthy, they've got a chance. And we were talking about the job Jeff Brothers has done over at Nashville Christian. Ingle Martin quite the same way at CPA. I think they lost maybe 2 games last year. He's got them undefeated this year in his 2nd season. And the thing that I like about Ingle, and I think the thing that those kids like, is he can still relate. He's still young enough, you know, former NBA standout, signed with Florida, played at Furman, played in the NFL, and it's all been recent enough that those kids are familiar with what he's done. And I imagine there's times when he probably gets under center and kind of shows Albert what he wants done with the ball from time to time, and he can still do that. So something building over there, and for them to get to Cookeville, it would be their first state championship appearance since they won the state, I think, back in 2000. So they're on a little bit of a roll over there right now.
They're on a big roll right now. Milan, those we've talked about, not a shabby team. They know each other from last year. That's going to be a whale of a ball game for Friday night.
You know, I went to school with a bunch of guys from Milan when I was at MTSU, and That's all they talked about was Milan football, and that's been, like you said, a very storied program over in that area. Won some state championships, and it'll be a good ball game for sure. A lot of purple over there.
Oh, a lot of purple on this side too.
Yeah,
that'll be the perfect color to wear. Then you can sit on either sideline and you'll be all right. Let's take a look at Class 4A now, where Knoxville, Fulton, 11-2 has to travel to Giles County. The Bobcats still undefeated at 13-0. Fulton got on the road last week, pulled off a victory, beating Livingston Academy 35-14 on the road again this week. 250 miles they got to go to Giles County. Hope they can find their way there. You've seen this Livingston Academy team. I was a little bit surprised Fulton beat them by 21.
I was, and I think that probably tells you how good Fulton is, that they were able to go to Livingston and win that game so decisively. Fulton is a team, again, that has had a lot of postseason success. I think they are playing for their 4th or 5th state championship game berth since like 2003. They've won 3 state championships since then. So this is a team that has been down this road before. Ditto for Giles County, won the state championship in 2009 with Bo Wallace, who's now the quarterback at Ole Miss. And they've got another they're a quarterback-driven ball club again this year with Al Cobb, who has thrown and ran for upwards of 3,000 yards and about 56 touchdowns. I think he's thrown 2 interceptions all year. So this is a guy who's really, not necessarily careful with the ball, but he's not reckless with the ball. He puts it where he wants it. And these guys have jumped in behind him, and like you said, 13-0. Looking for number 14 at home this week.
Yeah, they had to get a late touchdown last week to beat East Hamilton 22-16. Got a 2-point conversion to go with it. It tells you how close it was. Cobb last week, 193 yards in the air, 88 more on the ground.
He's dangerous. And he really is. I'm going to that ball game Friday night. I've not had a chance to see Giles County yet this year, but I'm really looking forward to seeing him. And obviously, with the success he's had, with the success Bo had in 2009, a lot of comparisons drawn between those two guys. From what I understand, Al may not quite have the arm that Bo had, but he may be a little bit better runner than Bo was, which is saying something because Bo was quite an athlete. They would throw him in at safety on key plays. And did late in their championship game as well, as I recall. So,
but can you imagine 250, 260 miles from Knoxville to Pulaski? And there's no easy way to get there.
No, not at all. I mean, you just kind of got to bite the bullet. I guess you can come around 840, and that'll help some.
Well,
but
yeah,
still,
840 is open all the way, so that'll help.
But still, it's one of those. You've heard the saying, you can't get there from here, you have to go somewhere else and start. That's
true.
That's kind of what they're faced with.
The other Class 4A semifinal matchup has Liberty Tech against Covington Tech, 9-4. Got to go to Covington, 13-0. Liberty Tech put White House out last week. I'm a little disappointed by that. I was really pulling for Blue Devils. I will make no bones about it. They mounted a 9-play, 75-yard drive, ended with a touchdown, with less than a minute remaining to beat the Blue Devils 27-23 in White House. Struggled offensively in the second half. Grant Wicker did have 178 yards, though, for the game. Covington, on the other hand, eased past former state finalist Tresvant 23-18. Liberty, with the record of 9-4, now carrying or wearing the Cinderella slipper.
Yeah, Covington is a team that went to the state semifinals last year, lost up here at Maplewood. Got a little bit of a tradition as far as that goes. Like you said, they beat Tresvant, which had been to the state finals in 4A in 2010, lost to Greenville. Liberty is a little bit of a newcomer to this round. Beat a good White House team, like you said. White House is just one of those traditional programs that you get used to seeing, and so you've kind of got to pay some attention to Liberty to be able to go on the road and win a game like that. I kind of like Covington and the job that they've done over the last 2 years in this ball game, though.
Would not be surprised. Helps to be at home.
When in doubt, go with the home team.
Oh, yeah, exactly. At this point, you always talk about home team. The old story was being at home worth 3 points. At this level, at this point in the season, I think it's worth probably 4 or 5.
Well, as far as some teams are having to go, now Liberty doesn't have a long drive, but when you talk about, like you said, a Fulton or a Coalfield or some of the other teams that we're playing, I think the farther that you have to go and the further out of your comfort level, and if you've not traveled a whole lot over the course of the season, it's a different environment. Thanksgiving weekend, you've already gotten out of your routine a little bit and that kind of thing. So I think traveling on top of everything else makes it a little tougher this time of year.
Of course, it may make the home team a little more complacent too. Got some home teams to talk about in Division Class 5A and 6A, and we'll take a look at Division 2 when we wrap up on the road to Cookeville. We'll be back. Maurice Patton, Joe Williams. Hey, he just reminded me, it's Thanksgiving. We may have to get a bigger camera next week.
Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the road to Cookeville. Joe Williams, my special guest, Maurice Patton. We've taken a look at Class 1A to 4A. Now we go to 5A as we get ready for action this weekend. And Maurice, we open up Powell 12-1, having to come to Middle Tennessee out of Knoxville. They'll face Columbia at 11-2. Powell had little trouble with Tennessee High. They won 31-10 last week. Columbia spotted Ooltewah 13 points and then scored 31 of their own unanswered to win 31-13. Dre Hall, Chris Martin, both rushing for more than 100 yards for the Lions.
Yeah, I was getting some tweets, checking scores as I was covering CPA Cheatham County the other night, and I saw that 13-0, and obviously that kind of thing catches your eye, and then the next thing you know, it's all Columbia starting to roll back. I think this is a team that's been in this position before, and we've talked about postseason experience. We talked about playing at home. Columbia was in the state finals in 2009. They won it all in 2010, and a lot of these seniors were involved to some degree with those two teams. And so even though they've got a first-year coach in Howard Stone, I think they really feel confident. They're playing with a lot of confidence right now, and being down 2 touchdowns early obviously didn't bother them a whole lot. Powell was in the state finals in 5A last year, lost to Henry County. Coaching change over the offseason as Matt Lowe decided to spend a little bit more time with his family, but they don't seem to have missed much of a beat, the Knoxville area school, and so it's another team making a long drive, and be interesting to see how this one shakes out. But I really have liked Columbia's offense in particular with the quarterback Matthew Markham, Dre Hall at the wide out, and then Chris Martin helping them stay a little balanced in the run game. So I feel like Columbia, with their experience and the weapons that they've got, will find a way to pull this one out at home.
And there's 10 games Friday night this week. This may be, if not the number one, it's got to be close. A semifinal contest in Class 5A where Beach at 13-0 actually has to go on the road, Maurice, to travel to Jackson Northside. Jackson undefeated at 13-0. It's a battle of number ones. Beach coming off their toughest game of the year. It was a 44-43 slugfest with Clarksville Northwest. It wasn't decided until a last-second 2-point conversion. And not Clarksville Northeast, I should have said. Jalen Hurd, the game winner, he had 175 yards on 25 carries. Northeast, though, may have exposed a weakness for the Buccaneers. Jalen Reeves, Mabin, ran for 334 yards. How many 300-yard games has this kid had this year?
He had 970 yards in 3 playoff games.
Enough said. Northside struggled a little bit with Ridgeway, despite quarterback Adam Craig accounting for 424 yards of offense and 5 touchdowns. Hard pressed to find a game that might be better. In my mind, we've got some though that are right there. There's about 4 or 5 of these games that you'd like to be able to clone yourself and go to.
I think that's going to be a really entertaining game. You mentioned that Northeast might have exposed a weakness as far as Beach went. I think it would take a Jalen Reeves-Maben to exploit whatever weakness that they might have found, though. He's a UT commitment, and like I said, he rushed for 970 yards in three playoff games. I think he finished the year with 22 plus. I believe he's going to graduate in December and go on up to Knoxville and take part in spring practice. So, he's a whale of a ball player. Beach has hitched their wagon to Jalen Hurd, and so far this year it's really played out well for him. The junior, I think, has got 2,500 plus rushing yards. Jackson Northside, real interesting situation. They were 2-8 last year.
What happened?
I think they graduated a bunch of kids from 2010 to last year. I think they knew it was going to be a rough year this past year. Kind of suffered their lumps with some young kids, including the quarterback, Adam Craig, who was a junior last year, has played since his freshman year, I believe. And I think they're really reaping the benefits. They, showed some patience with a lot of young kids last year, and you see the results. So as you said, I think this is going to be one of the more entertaining games of the night, and it'll certainly be one to, keep an eye on via Twitter or whatever it is that you keep up with your scores on Friday night.
Keep that smartphone moving.
There you go.
All night long. Speaking of keeping moving, if you need to keep your car moving, you can go see our friends at USA Motor and Machine. They're over on Cleveland. No matter if it's your daily driver of your race car or anything in between, they can help you keep it moving, especially if it's in the motor department. That's USA Motor and Machine. Maurice, we go now to Class 6A, where it is just, I'm expecting 2 slobber knocker football games here. Maryville 13-0. Defending state champ comes to Murfreesboro Siegel, 13-0. Now, the team with the state's longest winning streak, that's Maryville. Got a 41-20 win over Kingsport Dobbins Bennett. Sets up the match with the Stars. Siegel had to beat another district foe. This is what they faced. They haven't played outside of their district yet in the entire playoff series, as they beat the Riverdale Warriors for a second time. Probably count on one hand the number of teams who beat Riverdale twice in a single season over the past 10 or 15 years.
I think I saw something on that earlier this week. I think you can count it on 2 fingers.
On 2 fingers?
Yeah.
All right. The catch here is Brent Stockstill, who is everything he's built up to be as a quarterback, went out in the game early against Riverdale. Understand it is a partial tear of the ACL, the meniscus. And here we are. This is what's crazy. We're all adults and we're worried about the internal structure of an 18-year-old kid's knee. But he says he intends to play in this ballgame.
I think, you would have to cut the leg off to keep Brent Stockstill out of this game. If there's any way at all for him to play, he's going to play. Siegel in the midst of by far their best ever football season since the school opened, and I think you would have to tie him to the fence or something to keep him out of this ball game. He's going to play if there's any way he can. Not sure how effective he's going to be, unfortunately, and that's a sad thing because this kid has had such a great year.
Oh, yeah.
He's had such a great career for Siegel, and to get to the biggest game of his senior year, biggest game of his career, and not be able to go in and be 100%. And, I had a chance to sit down with him and his dad, MTSU coach Rick Stockstill, just before the preseason for a piece that we did on him and his family. And super kid, obviously super family. And it's not to say that there aren't a bunch of super kids out there, but I haven't dealt with all of them. And you just hate to see that for a kid like that who has done what he's done, who has meant what he's meant to his program, to not be at full strength in a game like this. And the thing is, you can play a team like a Maryville at full strength and still, not come out with the result that you want to get. But when you are going into it and you know that you don't have all your bullets in your gun, it's kind of tough.
Of course, the other half is, it makes for great PR up front. Maybe it was just a sprain, and maybe he's going to be 100%. I wouldn't expect that, but I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist, okay? It's really very simple. The other matchup in 6A has Mount Juliet with only one loss, traveling to undefeated Memphis Whitehaven. Now, they did something no one else has been able to do last week. Mount Juliet, that is, the Bears slowed down the Brentwood offense, and then for their own, they threw two passes the entire game. But they got 418 yards on the ground, rushing 64 times in a 31-20 win.
You know, and the offensive production surprises me, but the philosophy doesn't. I really thought that Mount Juliet would go in and try to pound Brentwood, and that's not to say that Brentwood wasn't capable of standing up to it, but just having watched Mount Juliet a few times this season, I felt like they were going to be even more run-focused than they have been traditionally, and Contreras McCatherine comes up big. The big fullback gets
254 yards.
254, and Mount Juliet has been a team that has really spread the ball around. But when it comes down to it, if they're in a situation where they got to get a yard, 2 yards, McCatherine is pretty much where they're going to go. And I think they went into it with that mindset from the get. And I think they had Brentwood down 17-0 at the half.
Yeah.
And it was just a dominant performance on their offense's part from start to finish.
Now for Whitehaven, another blowout win, this over the well-known Germantown program down near Memphis, 52-7. Whitehaven has scored 148 points in 3 playoff games so far. It's almost 50 points a game.
That's a lot of points. And they, they played Mount Juliet in last year's semifinals up here, beat them 44-10. So they know that they can ring up points on this bunch. Mount Juliet's, kind of got that revenge factor in their mind, but at the same time they know, we got to go in to Whitehaven, another road trip, and we got to go in playing our A game, or it could be a long night.
And could be an atmosphere vastly different from anything they've seen.
To say the least.
That takes care of Division 1. Division 2 is we have the finalists set. And we'll deal with these guys real heavy next week, but let's at least talk about Maurice. Division 1 got their semifinal games set up, finished this week. In Division 2, Single A, Donaldson Christian from here in Nashville took an early exit. They lost on the road at Knoxville Webb 44-0. Evangelical Christian School will be facing Knoxville Webb as they smack St. George's for the second time this season, 27-20. ECS 6-6, but they won they went in the playoffs 4-6, and we had this discussion in our very first program. How does this happen? They won the games they had to win. St. George's 9-1 going into the playoffs, so they're 10-2 sitting at home, while 6-6 advances to the state championship game against Knoxville Webb.
It's tough to figure. I assume that ECS beat St. George's twice this year. Yep. Obviously, last week in the semifinal game, and I believe they beat them during the regular season as well. So ECS must do something that doesn't really agree with St. George's, or they really have had a great game plan for them both times. St. George is the defending state champion in Division II Class A, and like you said, 10-2 sitting at home. Knoxville Webb has done pretty much what I think everybody that keeps up with this division expected. They beat Harding 49-21 after a bye in the first round, and then they beat DCA, like you said, 44-0. Yeah. A team that's capable of putting up a lot of points. Obviously got a few collegiate prospects on that team. Todd Kelly Jr., who is the son of the former Tennessee linebacker, safety running back up there, probably their biggest name, but they have traditionally been a very competitive program at this level, and no surprise to see them in this position.
In Division II AA, maybe one of the most heartbreaking losses that you can imagine. Brentwood Academy on the road, I believe, saw a 23-0 lead. They're up 23-0. And they lose at Memphis University School 46-45 on a literal last-second score.
You know, Again, this is one that you kind of heard about as you were on the sidelines, and Brentwood Academy's up early and kind of doing what we had expected, I think, going in, and then all of a sudden the wheels kind of fell off. They turned it over a few times. I think they took advantage of some turnovers early to get up to the 23-0 lead. But they turned it over a few times. MUS cashed them in. Their quarterback, Jordan Rogers, no relation to.
Right.
But, made a few nice throws from what I understand, and kind of took advantage of Brentwood Academy's defense in some spots and brought the Owls back. And so you've got a matchup here in the finals that was the same matchup that Ensworth began the season with. They beat MUS 35-28 in the season opener. So at least Ensworth doesn't have to go to Memphis this time. They just got to go to Cookeville.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Do you think it's possible that Brentwood Academy, big lead, may have started looking towards that rematch with Ensworth a little early and didn't recover? We weren't there, so we'll never know for sure. But, I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Obviously, they were motivated by that 20-0 loss to Ensworth on national TV a few weeks back. I think that they immediately started thinking about what do we have to do to get to them again, and started, not necessarily focusing on that, but they were definitely working with that in the back of their mind, trying to get that game again, because even though it was 20-0, I really feel like Brentwood Academy felt like they certainly didn't play their best ball game. Not necessarily that it was a game they could have won.
Yeah, but it was really 13-0. The last touchdown was. Speaking of Ensworth, let's take a look. Everybody kind of expected this. They had little trouble, the Tigers did, beating MBA 45-7. 35, excuse me. 35-7.
Yeah, you're gonna
Don't add more. Yeah, I'll get a phone call.
Yeah, well.
You're exactly right.
But, this has become quite the rivalry over on that side of Nashville, and, I don't know that I necessarily expected Ensworth to win it 35-7. I did expect Ensworth to win it, but I really like the way MBA had been playing this last few weeks since their loss to Ensworth, and you got to account for Corn Elder when you're playing Ensworth.
You think?
Yeah, well, it might be a good idea to know where 15 is.
Yeah.
What did he wind up with? 284?
Something like that.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns.
Something like that.
So, you take him out and it's 7-7.
I want to know where he's at when he's walking in the locker room at half. You better put somebody on him in the locker room at half.
Maybe if you could keep him in the locker room at half.
Keep him in the locker room at half. Might be different. Well, that's how it sets up for this week. It's going to be another great week. Maurice, thank you so much for coming in. Next week, we'll be talking about the final 16 teams.
Yeah.
We'll be down to 16.
Sweet 16.
The Sweet 16 next week. And after that, it'll be the Great 8, because all 8 will have state championships in high school football for the state of Tennessee for 2012. Looking forward to the next 2 weeks, my friend.
Sounds good.
It ought to be fun. Have a great Turkey Day. We will.
Definitely.
You think I'm missing anything? We'll be back next week with more on the road to Cookeville. See you then.
Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis.